This is Deborah Johnson for Women at Halftime, and I'm passionate about helping women use their untapped skills, resources, and talents to create their ideal work and lifestyle, making a difference in their second half. I am adding an extra little intro to this episode because I batch record. So that means I do about 8 of these episodes at a time. And this particular episode was recorded before we were in the present time of a crisis and of this coronavirus. And really not only in our nation, but our world is going through sequestration, and there's going to be a huge time of having to restart, regroup, and reinvent right after this is calmed down a bit. And the subject today, 5 key questions to ask at halftime, doesn't only apply to halftime of life. It applies to almost any time of crisis. But halftime is a time of reinventing, regrouping, and restarting. So the principles that are in today's episode are very, very applicable for most everyone that will be listening to this episode. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you get a lot from it, and let's get to it. Hello, it's Deborah Johnson, and it's so good to be back with you for this episode. 5 key questions to ask at halftime. Narrowed these down to just 5 for this episode at least. And we'll talk about each one of these and some of the impact that it can make on really the rest of your life. And again, to remind you of what halftime is, it's officially age 40 and above. And most are about that 45-ish to 55 to 60, but on from there as well. So so many are living longer, they are working longer, enjoying their work, starting another whole career, which is actually very fulfilling and fun. There's more freedom. There's a lot of skills that those in halftime have and that they are carrying. They've worked for many, many years, so they are carrying that into these years now. And I'm all about helping those at halftime utilize those amazing skills and all of that talent and those resources. It's a little more freedom as well. So let's talk about the 5 main questions. And I'm going to outline the 5 questions first, and then I will spend time on each one of them. So number 1 question is, what is your end goal? And number 2, who are you presently impacting the most? And number 3, how's your mindset? And number 4, what is the priority of your relationships? And number 5, how's your health? Great questions. And in fact, we are going to dive into each one of these. Each one could actually be a separate episode. But today, I'm going to sum up some of the things in each of these areas because it's part of what I do in these episodes is to provide inspiration. So hopefully it will challenge you and inspire you in some areas. So number 1, what is your end goal? Do you want to give your time to an organization to really make a difference in people's lives? At the halftime of life, with a little more freedom, depends on how your time is and how you are regulating that. It depends on your family responsibilities still. Some are still pretty tied up with family responsibilities, especially if they are caring for parents. And that's a tough one. If you've got an elderly parent living with you, all of a sudden it's like you've got in many ways, children again, that you have to care for. So you have to think about that. So can you really give your time, and how much can you give? Usually you can. You can work out those things because at the halftime of life, if you've raised children, you know how to get help and you know how to coordinate a schedule. Those are skills that you have developed, especially many women. You have developed those skills. Do not discount those skills.
So what do you want to give your time to? Do you want to mentor? Would you like to coach? Would you like to start a nonprofit? There are so many programs as well, in some that want to become coaches. There's some great programs out there that will provide the training for you. Do you want to give money? There's opportunities there too, to give scholarships, to give encouragement for those students that are coming through in a specific area. That's a great way to be able to give of yourself if you've got those funds. Because, we can't take it with us. We might as well give some of that away. Or do you want to write more or create more product? If I say this to my husband, I think he'll look at me with one of those discerning eyes thinking, okay, what are you thinking about creating now? But many are really at the stage where they've been in a job or a place to where they just didn't have the time or emotional energy, and now they do. What is your end goal? What do you want to leave for that next generation, or for really anybody that'll read or listen or whatever with you, whatever you create? Maybe research. Some of you are very skilled in research, so that's an area as well. Or how can you do more toward making your end goal really a reality? This would be a great question for you here in what is your end goal. What do you need to do in carving some time out of your schedule, of your priorities, what you're spending your time on, all of that. I decided very early in my marriage that I would not be spending a whole lot of time on cooking. I cook nutritious meals. I put together a lot of salads. And of course, one of the things I do make are desserts. I make a very, very good apple pie, some other types of desserts, but not spending a huge amount of time. So I look to save time and eat still very, very healthy. So decide what you can shave off on what you're spending time on. Make sure, if that's something you enjoy, keep that in your schedule. I just use that as an example that I decided that I wasn't going to, spend tons of time, then I wanted to save time and still be eating very, very healthy. Some people want to do a little bit more at this time of life, such as they want to take an instrument up again. But that's going to be for more enjoyment. They want to add that in as one of their little goals at this time of life. Nothing wrong with that. And in fact, I'm starting my membership site for those who used to want to play again in piano mid-year, just because a membership site will work really, really well for this. Because even if you have online programs in that area, you need accountability and you really need encouragement as you go along. That's the beauty about even having private lessons, but many don't have the time for that. They don't have the funds to do this really, really regularly like they should. So this is a way I can provide that for so many. But again, that's part of an end goal, part of what the goals are for that halftime of life. Okay, well, let's move on to our second question. Who are you presently impacting the most? And who would you like to impact the most? Now, this can be a family member. It can be grandchildren. It could be relatives. I know one of the areas that I would love to have impact and am having impact are my granddaughters, and I want to be a part of their life. And many grandparents feel the same. They want to at least have a little part of creating memories, of helping train them. Both of my granddaughters are being homeschooled. I love to read with them and inspire their love for books, for good books. There could be other people in your life, such as acquaintances in your social groups. What about your church? Some are leaning toward being in politics. I don't know who would want to do that with a big target on their back, but I have a grandfather who was a mayor and an uncle that was a police chief, very much in the political scene, and I knew what it took. But they really wanted to have an impact for their city, and they did. So I really appreciate the work that they did. Maybe for business leaders that you would like to have an impact. And what can you do to create more impact? Maybe writing articles, writing to the editor of a paper. Papers are still read and still received. Magazines, of course, editorials online abound. Maybe impact, again, as I mentioned, with your family or calls to different family members. Leadership roles in local social groups. That could be another area, or leading a nonprofit. I did that for a year, but it really was amazing. Even the other day, I'm still getting emails from those that were in our leadership group during that year, and how much they enjoyed it. And those mean so much to me. I can't, I worked very, very hard at creating a community, and they just mean a lot to me when someone still remembers of the impact that you make. So that's number 2. And number 3, love this one, and it's not always easy. How's your mindset? Okay, now this is a hard one for many because we tend to be a little pickier. We've done the same thing the same way for so many years, and why is it going to be changed now? I don't want to end up to be a grumpy old lady. I just want to be joyful, having that joy in my heart, and majoring on the majors. Talk about this a lot. And I started coining that phrase a lot more when I was directing my original musicals and working with actors, because you have to do that. You have to major on the majors. Patience with a younger generation that don't work on the same timetable or with the same set of base values is not easy. It's tough, actually, and we can end up being very, very critical. Or if we are of a personality that we're very detailed, and all of a sudden you notice that things aren't being done exactly the way that they should be, or that you think they should be. So easy to put on that critical hat. And it's going to affect you. You're going to end up getting bitter and getting upset about it. And, it's just not worth it. So becoming more flexible is not easy, but it is possible. It's a mindset. It's just letting some things go that are just not worth it. And I tell you, you have to do this in relationships. That's actually our next little point. But you have to be able to let some things go, especially if you want those relationships to last. So how can you adjust your mindset? You've got to decide how to do that. And maybe you can define a few ways that'll work just for you. I do a lot of journaling. It really helps me to just do a focus. And I do that first thing every single morning. Every morning. And I journal just for a couple lines. That's it. But I have a little devotional I read, and I just reflect. It doesn't take very long, but it helps me to focus. Meditation may help you, prayer, working with a coach if you need to. You may have a friend or a colleague that you can talk to, and that would help you. Also, spirituality is very important. We're not here forever, and we are all on the same train. We do not go for 900 years anymore, as we read in some of the biblical accounts. We only have a limited time. So find some peace in this area, and take time to think through how you're going to respond in many different situations and scenarios. And it will help you if you almost like you do a little pre-planning in this area. And now we're going to go into our number 4. And this is where another great question to ask. What is the priority of your relationships? And if you are still married, your spouse should be at the top of your list. I'm just going to say that very bluntly. But some at halftime need to make a change. And if you need to make a change, just do it. That's when most of it, most of those little splits start happening more and more. But at the halftime of life, I really decided I did not want to start over. I had married my husband, love my husband still, of course, very much. And we met on a blind date, and we've gone through a lot of stuff. And as I look back, I'm amazed sometimes that we actually did make it, because we disagreed in a lot of areas as well. But at this point, I can't even imagine. And if something happened to him, it would be very difficult to think about really starting over in that sort of close relationship like a spouse. So that's one of my main relationships. Of course, I have a close circle. I have some friends, and I have some colleagues that I keep close. And then I have other sort of varied levels of relationships and friends. And I talk about this a lot in my book, Women at Halftime, because relationships are very important. It's part of Hero Mountain. It's one of the cables is your relationships cable. And it's a very important part of halftime, because many are so lonely at this point of their life. If they've never been married, there are women that have never been married, men, less men than women, but that are by themselves, that are just lonely. And how do you fill that void? Well, keep those relationships strong, of your friends, of your colleagues, very important. And there are changes ahead as well as we look at our relationships. Physically, we have changes. And again, I wrote in my book all about the year of the toe with my husband, that his big toe had an infection, and he had a lot of fear that he was going to lose that toe. And he's a former professional athlete. It was a huge big deal. Going through that emotionally with him was like, it's like, there were times, I have to be honest, I felt like, just get over this. It's whatever happens, but I couldn't say it that way. So, be honest, but keep that relationship very, very important. Spend time with them. What do they need? What do those people need? And if you've made it this far in a spousal relationship, many congratulations to you, because you really deserve some kudos, because it's a great journey together. But you want to look in your relationships, whether they are friendships, colleagues, whether they're spouse, close family members, look to encourage each other at this time of life. There are so many changes. Our body changes, our goals change, our life changes, priorities change. So, and then schedule those trips and times away so you can spend time with important people. And taking time away with important friends is very important, and it's hard to do. We get busy. So it doesn't need to cost a whole lot of money. It doesn't need to be for a long period of time. And I just celebrated a little late birthday celebration with some of my close music friends. We get together for each other's birthdays. And my birthday's toward the end of December, so we usually celebrate in January. We ended up celebrating in February this year. But we went to one of the outlets just to shop together. We laughed. We had a great time. It was incredibly windy and cold. So we just laughed and had a great time. You're building those memories and keeping those relationships alive. The last little question is, what about your health? And this is one, too, where people end up ignoring. Don't disregard this step. And most type A personalities are used to running hard and fast. Yes, I understand this. And you can still do this, but also listen to your body. Very important points here is get your exercise. And for those at halftime, add in that weight-bearing exercise for strength. Now, many listening to this, you're going, this is old news. I hear this all the time, but do it, do it, do it. And walk more. Enjoy the outdoors, all that you can, while you can. And if you're in an area to do so, really enjoy the nature around you. We're planning another trip coming up. One of our sons is, he's, I should say, finally graduating from college. As his gift, we want to do a bike tour together. Like, I can still do that. I can still ride pretty hard. I might get the electrical one. Don't tell him. But I can still do that. So do it while you can. Diet. You may not need as much food at this time of life, and that's really hard because food is good. I like really, really good food. And the pounds get harder to come off. So just find something good and balanced and with a lot of fruits and veggies. And you don't need to skip meals to lose weight, but calories still count. So just pay attention to that, to your body. And then last is that sleep. And boy, there's more and more documentation how important that sleep is. And you might find your body's changing and you have trouble sleeping. So watch what you eat before bed and also watch what you're watching. If you have some sort of device on, there's a lot of studies on that too. But develop a routine. I've always not wanted, at the home where we're in now, we've been here for a number of years, did not want a TV in our room. Just because I like to read, I like to start winding down, and it really helps me. That's part of my routine. I'm able to relax and actually sleep. So understand what your body needs and what you need personally and what helps you the most. So maybe it's meditation. Another thing, I love a good bath. So maybe that's you. I love a good bath. So I hope you've enjoyed this. To review all 5 of those questions again, what is your end goal? Who are you presently impacting the most? How is your mindset? How are the prioritizing of your relationships? And how's your health? Those are all very important questions to ask. And next week's topic you do not want to miss. It is how to manage finances during a crisis. And Greg and I are doing this together. You're going to hear mostly from him. He is the financial wizard. He's been a financial advisor and for a number of years. And just some great advice because many people at this time of life now and after a crisis, especially or during a crisis, are having to reinvent, restart, regroup, and how do you survive? And we're going to be talking about that, some main principles here that will really help you. So make sure you join us then. If you have friends that you think would enjoy this, please tell them to listen and subscribe. We'd love to add them. And I hope you join me next week, Deborah Johnson with goalsforyourlife.com and womenathalftime.com. And I'd love to get some of your reviews as well. Those always mean a great deal. And we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us on Women at Halftime. Visit goalsforyourlife.com or womenathalftime.com for many more resources, downloads, and programs, or to get in touch with me. I'd love it if you leave me a review and tell your friends. So until next time, this is Deborah Johnson signing off.